I'm Brittany Woolley. I was in CVH my junior and senior year, and after that went to Moore Park College, and while I was in high school, because of the homeschooling, I was able to try out a lot of different things, see if I wanted to be with horses or what animal I liked best. And then Moore Park College, I was taking criminology at first. Maybe I'll be an animal cop. And it ended up, I didn't really want to memorize everything there. It wasn't quite for me. So I went to Pierce College and took some equestrian classes. And it's very fun. I loved it. It was just probably going to be a harder industry to get into. So Cynthia Kusaba, who is in the CVH group as well, recommended a veterinary office that I could go work at. So she helped me get the job there, and I've been there 2 years now, and I love it. I'm still going to school to get my technician degree, but I think this is what I want to do.
Fabulous.
All right, I'm Asa. I have been homeschooling my whole life, and I joined CVH in 2008, I think, 2009. And then in 2010, I went to Rhode Island, to RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, and then left there at the beginning of 2011. Now I'm currently going to California College of the Arts, and I'm getting a degree in furniture design.
Hi, I'm Savvy Fletcher, and I was homeschooled for a long time. And now I go to Chapman University. I am a communications major with a minor in philosophy, and I'm going to law school.
Natalie Katz. I was in CVH since it began, all the way through until I graduated my senior year of high school. The last year of high school, I went to Moore Park, took some classes at Moore Park and did some just regular homeschooling, so I had my Moore Park time. I went to UC San Diego for my undergraduate. I got a degree in linguistics. Graduated from UC San Diego in 2010, which was an excruciatingly long time ago. And I am working at CVH Publications in Newbury Park. I've been there for a little over a year now. Started out as an editorial assistant, and just promoted to a brand new position, working in a new business model. It's very complicated. You can ask me about that after this if you want. But it's a good position, it's a good promotion. So I'm kind of, I think, representing maybe sort of the after college portion of life also. So any questions about that?
I'm Annie Blockwest. I was homeschooled since second grade, so it was the end of CVH's first year, all the way through college. I went to Moore Park College for my last 2.5 years of high school, and then I continued my freshman year of college as also at Moore Park. And then I transferred to Pepperdine University for 4 years, where I majored in, it's really long, theater and media production through telecommunications with an emphasis in directing. And I just graduated a month ago.
That was my grand entrance. I'm Ben Katz. I'm Natalie's brother. I've been in CVH since its beginning, and I stayed with it until 2009. However, in 2006, as a sophomore, I started taking classes at Moore Park College. And then when I graduated CVH in 2009, I continued taking classes at Moore Park for an additional 2 years as a lower division undergraduate. Then I transferred to UC Berkeley, where I'm double majoring in neurobiology and mathematics. And I'll be graduating this upcoming December, and my plan is to either work as an actuary, which is a financial analyst for companies, or possibly doing tech, such as working at Apple or Google.
Hi, my name's Joey Grady. I've been with CVH, I don't know what year it began, but I started homeschooling when I was in 5th grade and was with CVH since that time. As far as taking classes while I was still in high school, I've taken courses at Moore Park College since I was 13, on and off, just depending on what I was taking that year, and I still do. But after I graduated high school, I went to Musicians Institute in Hollywood. That's a trade school. I took a recording arts program there, and I left and went to work at an Apple retail store after 3 years, I decided it was time to go live the dream. I quit my job, and now I write music for video games for a living, full time.
My name is Nick Roscoe. I was homeschooled my whole life. I joined CVH when I was about 9 years old and stuck with it until I graduated high school. I also, like many people, started taking classes at Moore Park College my sophomore year of high school. Graduated Moore Park College with my associate's degree in television and film. And then I transferred out of Moore Park College to Cal State Northridge, got my bachelor's degree in film production last year. And then after leaving, started my own production company with 3 of my colleagues. And I'm currently working freelance at Bravo, the network, as an editor, video editor.
I'm Henry Hawkins. I was homeschooled for 8 years. For those years, I was at Moore Park ISP, and the other 4 years I was R4, a private school. I spent about 3 years in Moore Park College homeschooled, and then 2 more to finish up, and now I'm transferring to UC Santa Barbara for chemical engineering.
Awesome, okay. I'm sleeping. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start off with some of the questions that were sent in via email to kind of get the ball rolling. So what homeschooling experience or skill has been most helpful to you? Start off, let's start at this end.
Let's see. I would probably say that the most important thing I gained from homeschooling was the drive to perform in my classes and to study and do well. And I noticed really at Moore Park College that I stood above the other students because I was willing to put in the effort, which the other students did not have. I mean, they didn't want to put in.
Yeah, I would say about the same. Like, just homeschooling for me taught me a real sense of self-motivation, and so I knew what was going to happen if I started lagging on homework and going to school and things like that. So it's the same.
It's 2 things for me, and that first one is you get to be closer with your family. Any teenagers in the audience might think that's not really helpful right now, but it's important, and it's useful to spend that kind of time with the people that you share DNA with. I mean, they know a lot about you, more than sometimes you do. And the second thing is time. You get time to find what you want to do with your life, as opposed to sticking with the general ed classes in public school or private school. It's not like we didn't go through math and history and science, but we also had a lot more time for extracurricular activity, meaning we could try different things. The first Moore Park College class I took was 3D modeling and animation, and I ended up doing an internship for the company that designed Cinema 4D after that class was finished. But it's like, okay, this is cool, but let's find something else to do. So I had that kind of time.
For me, the best thing I learned from homeschooling was how to teach myself. This is a skill that both at Moore Park and at Berkeley, when I do most of my learning on my own, not in the classroom, whether it's reading from the assigned textbook or going online and finding answers there, or reaching out to other people in my life who may have some real insight that I can get answers from. And it just kind of taught me that I'm really in control of my education, and that there's more than one way to get the answers that you are looking for.
I don't have to agree with everything they've all said. I'm trying to wrap my brain now, but I've actually written a lot of papers in college about my homeschool experience. One of the main things I've written about is the passion that homeschoolers seem to have for learning. I've had a lot of professors through my college career say, Annie, you're so driven in what you're doing, you're so passionate about this subject. And I honestly think that's because I wasn't burnt out by the time I went to college. I had the opportunity to love what I was doing in homeschool and learn because I liked what I was learning and I wasn't being forced to learn. And so I got to take that extra time while I was homeschooling, like I said, in Egypt for months because I felt like it. And then I moved on to something else. But I think that is what really helped me in college, and what I'm most thankful for is that I have a passion for learning. And so my roommates, by the time finals came senior year, they were done. Like they were over it. I mean, I was pretty close, yeah, but I hadn't been going to school for my entire life, and so I could appreciate my time at Moore Park and Pepperdine a little bit more than I think a lot of my friends did in school in college because they were burnt out, and I had this passion for learning.
I think for me, one of the things that's proven to be most important, even after school, particularly after school, is that I have a great deal of comfort with people of different ages. Because within the homeschool group, we were all friends, and we were all different ages. So I had friends who were younger, I had friends who were older. I count a lot of the parents of my friends as friends, or second or third mothers. So I'm comfortable with people of different ages. Wasn't never shy. Which definitely helped with when it comes to my work and working with people of different ages and people who perhaps are above me in the job structure. Just feeling self-confident in myself and being able to interact with people and be friendly, and no matter what their age is or where they come from in life, to me it's all the same. I'm not kind of stuck in my age group, my age bubble, just because I had that experience in the homeschool group.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I second everything that everyone's already said. I definitely agree with all of that. But for me, something that I found to be really helpful was how much homeschooling promotes creativity. I don't think I was ever given an assignment and then did it and was told I did it wrong, because I chose to take it another way. And a lot of times in my classes, I find that the teachers have seen this paper 1,000 times. They have assigned this project many, many times. And when you come at it from a different angle, or you're passionate about it, and so you put a lot more into it, and you're really creative with it, you're gonna get a good grade because they're gonna love it, and you're gonna have a good time doing it. So I liked that I didn't feel like I didn't feel suppressed ever, and I could just be as creative as I wanted to.
I'd say homeschooling helped me a lot with my work ethic, and going into college, that made me stand out above all the other students, and I was able to learn, or I'm able to learn a lot more because outside of the classes I'm digging around for more information.
Sorry to go last.
What did we not cover?
Right. Again, I agree with everybody here. I guess the biggest thing for me was probably that you can take it your own way. You can go at your own speed. If you have something else that you have to do or you would like to do that day, you get to decide your own schedule. Just the adaptability you're able to have, and that you can grow and figure out what you want to do and have the time to do that. So I think that was the most important, was being able to adapt and flex.
Awesome. Does anybody have any questions? We don't have to stick to our email questions. Anybody have anything that they want to? No? Okay, moving on. Oh, we had a question.
What is it like transferring from homeschooling to college? Just like in that first couple of days of college and the last couple of days of homeschooling.
Better equipped.
I'll start off.
Repeat the question, please.
The question was, what was it like on the very first few days when you stepped out of the homeschooling world and into the school world, the college world? And for me, I was woefully unprepared. Mom drove with me. We were actually taking the bus to Moore College, and I'm not used to carrying around a backpack with pencils and paper and notes. I just walked in, I sat down, I was like, all right, let's learn. My mom sat next to me, and she was the one taking notes and listening. I was just like, Mom, she's like, man, the things he's saying are things that are important. And it sounds like a very obvious concept, but it wasn't to me, just because the way I had done things at home was so organic. and I wasn't used to that. And so it took me a few days before I really started to figure out, how to filter out the things that are important versus the things which are just filler versus funny stories versus things which will become important further on down the road, and you should store it away, but don't worry about it too much right now.
Yeah.
Test taking
Yeah.
protocol.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
Yes.
guys, there's these things called tests. You gotta sit down.
I don't know how to draw a bubble.
When your teacher says, this is important, write this down, they mean it. Like, it's going to be on the test, write it down, put a big star next to it or something. I didn't understand that.
Well, I think what was hardest for me is that I think from a homeschooling point of view, which we're really lucky, and I think that's what sets us apart in the world, is that we look at the world as a learning experience. And so to have the idea that a teacher is lecturing for an hour and a half and you're only supposed to pick up like 30 minutes of it and the rest doesn't matter didn't work for me. And so I just threw away 20 million notebooks in my room of the past 4 years because I took copious amounts of notes. I wrote down every single word the teacher ever said, and that's just me. I'm strange like that. But I didn't realize until later that information didn't help me on the test whatsoever. And so I'd come back to the teacher, and in my first years in college, and I was like, okay, I can pretty much recite to you everything you ever said, but I don't understand why I'm not grabbing. Thank you. To what was specific for them. But so I think that for me that was the hardest thing going from homeschool to college, and that's why I feel grateful that I went from homeschool to Moore Park to Pepperdine. Because I think if I had gone from homeschool to Pepperdine, at least for me, I would have sunk. It's a huge difference between a 4-year college and community college and then homeschool, because it's just your brain is used to learning because you love it, and then you have to do that as well, but also take into account what's important to the teacher.
I could talk about my first days of Moore Park as well. I started Moore Park when I was 12, and my mom was there too. But if you're just, you asked what was it like transferring from homeschool to college, and for me, that's more like when I started at Chapman. The first days of Chapman, you don't learn anything except a whole bunch of social stuff. You have new roommates. You are not living at home. It's very different. So it was more of a culture shock for me than anything else. But yeah, star those things when they say it's important.
Any other questions?
Yeah. A lot of you keep saying that your love of learning is what's feeding you or pushing you through. But did you ever go through a time in high school where you hated it, or didn't want to do your schoolwork, or just absolutely hated the concept of school? And how did you get through that? And how did your parents help you know that?
Yeah, I checked out pretty early on. I was never I was never super academic. I was always very much knew from the beginning that I wanted to work in entertainment, and I wanted to be behind a camera, shooting something all day. And it was always a struggle when I was homeschooled with my mom, because she'd be okay, well you have to get this book work done, even though I wish you just make films all day and stuff. Yeah. But so those struggles became kind of a little bit intensified when I got into college, because you just sometimes have to just kind of grit your teeth, and you're okay, I have to learn the subject that I know I'm not gonna get an A in, or I'm not gonna do well in. But what I think got me through all that is having that passion. I found my passion early, and I found a passion that I was going to pursue in college. And so I knew that even though there was going to be some classes and some road bumps that I didn't necessarily like, that my passion for film, that was the end goal. It's I'm gonna get that degree in film. I'm gonna, eventually like Joey said, live the dream. So.
That's right, I did say that. Yeah, I mean that passion. I mean, for me, I kind of feel like I was born with it. I just knew I wanted to do music for my whole life. But for people like me, I think I would have been stuck in public school and having to go through all of these extra GED courses, and knowing that music is what I would have wanted to have done, and not being able to spend enough time on it early on, I think it would have crushed me. So I think when we're talking about passion, it's because we had the chance to express it and get school credit for it too. What was I gonna say about this? Oh yeah, there was a time when I got burnt out. Mom brings this up all the time. Because there was one day where Tessa and I, my sister, decided to play mutiny or something on the captain and just go, we don't like school anymore. One morning.
And you can do that as a homeschooler.
Yes, you can. But there's consequences to pay. My mom's quite the creative person, and so when Tess and I said that we don't want to do school anymore, Mom said, "Okay, that's fine. You're not allowed to learn anything today. Period." Okay, great. Well, I'm gonna play video games. No, you learn reflexes and thumb conditioning, and you build your hand muscles in playing video games. I'm sorry, you cannot play video games. You're lame. Okay, well, I'm gonna go outside and walk. No, inner ear function. You're learning balance and. We had to just sit on the couch and learn what it was to be a potato, I guess. We're still learning after all.
We love your mom.
I love her too. It's obviously the teacher involved, usually the parent, when it comes to homeschooling, has a lot to do with how the experience will go. I think it was like 90% of the success rate of homeschooling has to do with the parent-child relationship. But Mom was a creative woman, and she still is creative. She was creative, especially that day. And she never lets me or Tessa forget that.
I was convinced I wasn't going to go to college. I was fed up with high school. I just wanted to stop everything. I didn't want to even apply to college, but my mom was like, "You just apply and you don't have to go. Just see if you get in." Then I got into college, and she's like, "Just go try it out." So I went to school on the East Coast, and first semester was torture. And then I realized, oh, I'm in the wrong school, and I came back to California. And now looking back at it, wow, I learned a lot. It's very empowering. I love it. I'm glad I'm at college. And I'm sad it's ending soon.
Awesome. Any other questions out here?
What about some of you had a passion to sing and knew what direction it was and maybe you had to go through things to get to it, or how Joey's done it. But what about some of you that in college might have been found things that you didn't know you were going to be interested in, and it took you in that direction? And then you also found things you weren't, but how it might have broadened your view or your passions.
I'll jump on this one. My experience doesn't fully relate to the question. I had a lot of interest in high school, and I thought I was going to go to fashion school for a while, and then I didn't do that. And then, what are you laughing at? And I ended up choosing a school. I didn't really know where I wanted to go to college even. I went based on Berkeley was too far and UCLA was too close, and I liked San Diego. Let's go to San Diego, that works. And then I was undeclared for 2 years until the guidance counselor said to me, you were gonna pick a major, we're gonna kick you out of here. And it was, I liked everything, and I couldn't think of picking just one thing. That was very limiting to me. And so I went through the catalog for the 17th time, and I thought, well, okay, I'm gonna do linguistics. I didn't take a single linguistics class, but I liked languages, so I took the first class, and I thought, this is cool, I'll do this. And I got the degree, I loved it. It still didn't really give me a direction. I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I graduated, I came home, probably much to my parents' chagrin. I got a few different internships in completely different places. I actually went and got a fashion internship, that was a lot of fun. I got an internship doing some social media publicity work, and finally thought, I still haven't figured out what I want to be, who I want to be when I grow up. But if I keep waiting to figure it out, I'm never going to figure it out. So I need to go out there. I need to get into the job market. I need to start working. And then once I'm sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day, maybe then I'll figure it out. So I decided I'd like to look into publishing, partly because of my degree, partly because of a lifelong love of reading. And I thought, it's as good a place as any to start. And looked around, got the job I have now, and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and I still don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm doing something, and I'm learning so much as I go. I mentioned earlier that I've just changed roles. This role is a lot of project management, and I'm finding that I love it. And I would have never known that I like to manage projects, apparently. But
Really?
yeah, everyone else do except for me, apparently.
Where'd you learn that from, Jen?
So it's a lifelong process, I think, and this wasn't quite what the question was, but I think what I'll go ahead and say is, if you don't know what you want to do, if you don't have a passion, I've always wanted to do music or film, and you're thinking, well, what am I going to do if I don't have that one passion? It's okay. Just pick something. There is no wrong answer. Pick something in school. As far as a school, go somewhere that sounds fun. Like literally, you're going to learn the same thing either anywhere you go, so just go somewhere. Learn something. Go get a job. Get as much experience as you can. So don't wait to find your passion to start living, basically. You'll be 38 and still don't know what you're doing. That was almost me.
I think I can kind of help with the question too. I was kind of that person where I like to do a billion things, and picking a college or major was extremely difficult for me because I wanted to do a million things. And after being at Warburg for a while, I was like, well, I've been speech team for a little bit, so I kind of like communications, and I've done theater all my life, but I don't want to major in theater, but I don't want to just major in communications, and it was this like back and forth craziness until I found this major at Pepperdine, which was theater, and at the time it was called theater and television. And I was like, well, that kind of has some communication classes in it, that might sound really good. And so I tried it for the first semester, and I was like, I don't know about this. There was a lot of media production classes within television of the technical part of media production, so the cameras and the lighting and all of that, and that was not up my alley. I didn't like it. I didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't know why I chose this major. I was like, why am I in this school? Why did I choose this? This is a really expensive school. I'm crazy for being here. I basically just started looking at where to transfer. I have mock applications on my computer of a couple schools of just applying to transfer out of Pepperdine. At the end of the first semester, or the second semester of the first year, my mom and I sat outside in the summer, and I just started crying. I was like, Mom, I don't know why I'm at this school. I really don't like this part of my major. This is a waste of my time, blah, blah, blah. And she sat down and we talked about it. She goes, you know what? Let's make you a major, because you can at some schools. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to basically I remade the major I was in without the media production part of it. It was exactly the same major except those classes, basically. And we spent forever on it. And so going into my third semester, we were continuing, and I was making the curriculum, and I was researching who I had to propose it to and all of this stuff. And then about halfway through the third semester, we didn't really do anything with it. And I just kind of stopped, and that next semester I re-enrolled for the third time in that media production class that I disliked so intensely my first 2 semesters. And I had a fabulous professor, and I loved it. And I continued on to the next level of that class, and then the third level of that class, until I realized how much I loved that part of my major. And I started to realize that I wanted to be a director, which was something that I never thought I wanted to do. I thought about being an interpreter and going to culinary school and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I had this side of my major that I had no clue I liked. And all of a sudden I am now wanting to be a director for the rest of my life, for now. Until I change that, I guess. But I think what's key to know is that you will be led a million directions, but what's great about college, at least for me, was that it really helped me find a passion that I didn't even know I had. And now that's something that I can't imagine not doing. So I think that's a really neat thing to look forward to in college as well.
I have a brief little thing to share about my experience. Basically, back when I started Moore Park, I liked everything, but I didn't like anything enough to really decide this is what I'm going to focus on. But I did know that I liked music. I liked listening to music, I liked playing music. I played the piano for 10 years. And so I thought, I'll take some music classes. Maybe I'll, become a composer or something. And a little bit into that, taking some music theory, I kind of changed my career a little bit. I thought, oh, actually, the business side of it, being a music producer, is actually pretty cool, because then you're not really writing the music, but other people come to you with your music, and you can help tweak it and decide whether or not to bring in a trumpet at this part, or you maybe scrap, some other section here. So you get to kind of like rearrange it. So that sounded pretty cool. So at that point, I was beginning doing some kind of music business crossover. And then there was one semester where I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a whole swath of classes that are just out of control. So I took computer science, I took psychology, I took business, just like things that were not on the main track, not on the main curricula of general ed. And in my psychology class, we got to the part where we were talking about the neurobiology, and that was really exciting to me because everyone talks about the brain as being this black box. No one knows what's inside, it works its magic. And I just kind of assumed that no one knew anything about it. But in the psychology class, they broke it down. They said, well, we actually do understand, there's different hemispheres and different lobes, and we understand how neurons work to a certain extent. And it really gave me a sense of, oh, we can deconstruct the brain down to its fundamentals and maybe understand these very finely tuned parts of the machine and slowly piece it together, and then you get the whole thing. You get this emergent sense of how the brain works. And that was so exciting to me. So I said, forget music, let's study the brain. And we're not going to do it the psychology way, we're going to go hardcore, we're going to go deep into the science. So this is my first semester graduating the CVH. So it was my first semester at Moore Park as an actual college student. I took chemistry and biology and math and really delved into that. And I had this goal straight ahead of deconstructing the brain using science, and it was really exciting. And that was my driving force. But what I didn't anticipate is along the way, I really found myself enjoying the individual classes. I really enjoyed chemistry. Chemistry was really cool, completely removed from the context of studying the brain. And it took me a few years, in fact it took me until by the time I got to Berkeley, that I actually didn't care that much about studying the brain. I just really liked studying bio and chemistry and math, and these things were removed. So again, I kind of changed perspective just as I took more and more classes. And then at some point I decided that I just didn't really want neurobio at all. I really liked math and physics and computer science. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, which is why I'm kind of considering tech. But the moral of the story is, you may not know what you want to do, but sometimes you can get new ideas just by choosing a path and going along it for a little bit. And then you get new perspectives on things that you didn't even know were there in the first place. And it totally opens up doors that you had thought were forever closed.
I think you would have made a good producer.
For once. That's a side hobby.
Any other questions?
Hi guys.
Hi.
So, being deprived of the public school world, which I think is something that teens, wonder if you're going to be homeschooled, you're missing out on a lot of things in school. Most of you kids were homeschooled for a long time before high school, but I'm sure you all had moments when you wondered if you missed something by not going to school. So did you when you got to college, when you certainly started, or when you got out in the world, when you were starting to integrate with your peers who had been in public school, did you find that you were very, very different from them? Did they ostracize you? Could you relate to them? I mean, how was that experience for you? I'm talking really socially.
Okay, I
Jump on that.
I have best friends. I have not best friends. So you'll make friends. I was so frustrated my whole first year. I was like, why are you drinking until you black out? And the very next day you tell me you're never gonna drink again. Oh, but wait, it's Thursday. Thirsty Thursday, we're drinking again. Are you dumb?
I would say the same thing.
I called my parents crying. I lost some friends because of it. I was just frustrated, really frustrated. But you have to remember, because I didn't go to high school, I didn't go to the kinds of parties that you'll experience at college. I'm warning you, they're there. And I was just really frustrated because I felt I'm not trying to sound pretentious or super smart, but I felt like I understood something that the rest of my graduating class just hadn't grasped yet, which was just in regards to like drinking and social things and that sort. And I was just really frustrated a lot of the time. Like pretty much the whole first year I just didn't understand why they couldn't understand what I saw. So you might run into that, but just know that a lot of your friends will either grow out of that or not be your friend anymore. And and that just be patient, and you'll learn a lot too, just as they are. So that's important as well. I learned a lot as well.
I'm gonna kind of counter that with my experience.
Good.
Just a little bit. When Andy's gonna remember this. We used to have this thing where we talk about like public school kids, like they had some sort of disease, which looking back I really think is quite terrible. But especially for those of us who had been homeschooled since Andy and I were homeschooled since 3rd grade, so most of our lives, we really thought very highly of ourselves, that we had this wonderful homeschool experience, that we were close with our parents, that we didn't disdain our parents, that we liked our friends' parents, that we're all very family oriented, and so we'd look at school kids with this sort of negative air, which again I think was a bit unfair. So I went to college kind of expecting that I was going to have the experience that Savvy had, which she did have and is valid, and that will happen. But what I was actually surprised to find out was that I lived in my first year, instead of a dorm floor, they had a suite set up. So, I mean, it was pretty sweet too, but it was a suite setup. So there was 15 people with a living room and a common bathroom and then like 5 or 6 bedrooms. So instead of like 40 people on a floor, you're only dealing with 12 to 15. So your first year, it kind of gives you this like instant social group. And some of those girls I'm still friends with, some of them I've never spoke to again, but for that 1 year, there was always someone to study with or someone to go eat with. And I was amazed at how nice they were and well-rounded and had this passion for learning and got along with people and loved their parents. And, all these things I knew that school kids just did not have or do. So I think for me it was a little bit of an eye-opener of, okay, yes, homeschoolers have an amazing opportunity, and many of us are much closer with our parents, with our families. There are tons of benefits and they're there, but school kids aren't like, Satan's spawn either. They're perfectly rational, functional human beings. In fact, I ended up being very impressed with some of the people I lived with, found that their work ethic was better than mine. Their passion for learning was better than mine. They had these goals that they just knew what they wanted to do. And then there were kids who didn't. So you get the full spectrum, and I don't think that necessarily homeschooling, it can give an advantage. It's really a personal thing. It's not necessarily going to. You're gonna find people who are just as cool as you are, and they went to public school, believe it or not. Though I did definitely have a culture shock experience. Maybe just a function of living under my lovely parents' roof. You can't really get into much trouble when your parents know every little thing that you're doing. So I went in much more innocent than some of the kids who were coming from high school, and that definitely, our first weekend, and they're like, let's go find some alcohol. I'm like, you can't do that. Stunned. But you decide what you're going to do in college. You find your comfort zone. And that can be anything. It can be as wild and crazy as you want. Parents, don't kill me. You can do what you want. But there was definitely that initial sort of culture shock, but you get over it fairly quickly.
Took me a little longer, but
maybe people were just cooler at my school.
Maybe.
I think like the difference between high school and college is that like high school is basically free mandated education, and college people are there because they want to learn, and they're on somebody's dime, whether it's their own or their parents or a scholarship. And it's very common, like what they're all saying, like it's really true, the rah-rah parties and stuff, and you see a lot of that like if you are going to go in as a freshman or a sophomore. My experience was a little different. I transferred in as a junior, and when I entered in at that junior level, even though Cal State Northridge where I went, like they have a pretty high like general acceptance rate. For the film production major, there was a portfolio review that you had to submit to get in and everything, and they only accepted 50 students for that major per semester. So everyone that got in was extremely serious, and when we had to do our senior thesis film, everyone had to fork up an additional $1,500 on top of tuition, to basically get to that last step before graduation. And so what I found just in my experience is going into those classes and entering in at that level, you know, everyone was very serious. There, you know, everyone was kind of on this like same playing field, and high school was years behind everyone, and no one really had an interest in where you went to school or if you were homeschooled or not. And I actually just had like some friends recently after I'm now done and graduated that I was at, actually they were at my graduation party, and like they were like, "You were homeschooled? Like I did not know that."
Yeah.
You know, and it's like it just was so irrelevant because we all got in and we were just on this thing, you know, like you wanted to direct, I wanted to edit, you wanted to, you know, be a camera guy, and so just know that.
Yeah. I had kind of different experience as well, seeing as I went to a trade school. The program I took was only for 6 months, and I commuted from home, so I wasn't staying in a dorm. It wasn't a total transition for me. It was just, you know, maybe surprising to see not my mom at the front of the class. It was like, what is this? This is just what they call a teacher outside my house. But going to Musicians Institute, it was, I kind of played a trick on myself because I took a recording artist program over there. And I'm thinking to myself when I sign up, I go, this is great. I'm gonna, you know, walk in and meet all my classmates, and I do electronic music infused with orchestral music, and I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna meet all kinds of musical people, and you know, I'm gonna meet people that do electronic music and people who do jazz and people who do just all different kinds of genres. And because of the program that I took, the recording artist program I took, I walk in there thinking, all right, I'm all excited. I get in, I'm surrounded by people in straight brimmed hats off the side, low-hanging pants, sitting back in their seats. What up, man? I do beats. How's it going? I completely forgot about this genre of music. Right. Okay, that's who's signing up for recording artist program, of course. And for me, it was kind of like, how come I can't, I just want to walk in and say hi. I don't feel like I can do that. I need to say, you know, how's it hanging, or you know, something a little bit more complicated than so, you know, aside from just, you know, learning the language, you know, street language, or whoever, you know, different colleges have different words they use. And I think that's something that you'll encounter for, you know, any first-year student. You're going to show up and you go, that's a new word, I haven't heard of that before. You know, so maybe if you go out of state or something. But for me, you know, even just
sorry.
even just, you know, an hour drive into the city was night and day. But I don't think that was contingent on homeschooling. I think it was just the change from going to a school in the city.
What school was that?
Musicians Institute.
I was saying on a social note, I think, Sandra, you asked if they're missing out on, is that what you said about missing out socially?
Do you feel like that? Do you have, you know, do you ever, I mean,
My answer to that is no way. I feel I got more socially out of homeschooling, and I wouldn't want to change that ever. I don't know what school was like, so I don't know exactly what I missed, but from what I understand, I had it really good in CVH. I mean, we went on field trips and we had scavenger hunts and murder mystery nights, and all of a sudden there was prom, and then we went to grad night, and all you things that are probably normal for all you guys, but it was like really new for us that never had any of that. I mean, Natalie started the teen group, and I mean, that didn't exist before. So in that vein, I'd say no way. I think that almost sometimes I felt even over-socialized, if that's possible, because I was doing so many things with so many different people with so many different ages that I personally loved that. Maybe that's not what you personally love within a social aspect. I mean, we had friends that were with us for majority of homeschool and then went to high school because that's what they craved, and they wanted that social experience like that. But I don't think, for me at least, that it harmed me in any way, and if anything, it made, for me, socializing in college even easier because it was easy to socialize with my peers, and it was even easier to sit in office hours with my professors for hours talking about either what was in class or just talking about life. So on a social note, that's how I would address that.
If you think you're missing out on something, tell your parents, because you'd be surprised what they can like whip up for you.
Except for dances. We had to beg for dances for years.
Well, I by not having a locker. I just that was my
We
best.
got little lockers in my house. They were like this big.
Oh no, I got a big one. Right in my room. You don't need a locker. But anyway, I'm serious. If you think you're missing something,
I mean, if you want one, it's a good piece of furniture.
It's fine.
Put your clothes in.
anyway, I mean, if they can find tours of like oil refineries or anything, I'm sure they can get you whatever you think you're lacking.
What school is that worth of oil refinery?
All right, parents. Yeah, that's all on you.
No pressure.
Thanks, Andy.
Okay. David, you're next.
I just wanted to ask if any of you had a specific mentor that you found, either in your community, in CVH, if somebody helped you, or if you seemed to mostly have your parents helping you find your passion, or even on your own, what the mix of experience was there.
I think that's a good one for Brittany.
Hi, Mom.
Not because your mom asked, because I know that someone in this room, you went to work with them.
Yeah, I think during CVH, I think my parents were mostly my mentor. And then I think I tried to do everything myself. I was always like that. I'll do it myself. But it's always good to have a mentor. Yeah, my parents were my mentor in high school, and afterwards you can either find a college professor or a good friend who's been through it, or anyone can be your mentor. And then when I was interested in the small animal program that I'm working at the vet hospital now, Cynthia helped me get into it. She was my mentor when I started working there. Ask her questions about stuff and anything I wanted, call her up or text her, and she was always there to help. So it's always good to have a mentor, no matter what you're doing.
I had a mentor from, I think, when I was either 13 or 14 years old, who went to design school, and we found him on Craigslist. And he... And he was my mentor and my best friend. I mean, I looked up to him. I didn't know I wanted to go to design school. And I just had worked with him, and he was great at drawing, and I was like, oh, I want to learn how to do that. So he showed me how to draw, and then he's like, this is the world of design. Here's industrial design. I'm like, oh, I want to do that too. So I thought, I went to college thinking I wanted to be an industrial designer. That was great, and then once I got to college, I'm like, where's my mentor? I lost him, but I still got to communicate with him, and even in college, I seeked out another mentor and went to go work with him. So I have another mentor in my field now, furniture design. And it's really good to have someone you can call up if you have any questions. So find a mentor.
David, you had a question?
Yeah. What is it like leaving your friends that you've known your whole life and your siblings that you've known your whole life? And also one other thing, what is it like having your first break at school?
Your first what?
Break.
Like winter break?
Yeah.
Oh.
Not your breakdown.
I think for me it was kind of the opposite. I stayed here, and then slowly all my friends started going off to other colleges. So I got to keep my family, luckily, but most of my friends headed off to different colleges. It's hard, and I moved out, so maybe that kind of connects. I don't live at home anymore, but I am in the area, so I can see them whenever I want. It's definitely hard at first, but you just get to realize there's so many new things. They're always there for you, even if you're not living in the same home.
I think I can answer this one well. So it's really hard, David. I miss you every day. It's really hard, but there's so many ways to keep in contact. When I studied abroad in Italy, I had horrible roommates. They were the meanest people I've ever met. But aside from that, I was so sad, right? I don't have any friends. Nobody speaks to me in the language I know, and it was really hard. But because I still had Annie and Skype and all sorts of chatting apps, That's the first thing I did. I called Annie and I said, Annie, I miss you.
I was walking between classes, Skyping her.
I'm in Italy. She's in Malibu. They don't disappear. They're still there for you. So it's really hard, but they're still there. Just over Skype.
Did anyone else study abroad?
Yeah, I wish our senior thesis film for a month in Bangkok, Thailand. So I lived there. I lived in Thailand.
I did a language intensive program in Argentina, Buenos Aires, and I did it for 2 months, and we took all 3 levels of college level Spanish. It was really hard, but it was worth every second, and it was a homestay, so I lived with a family in Argentina through Pepperdine. I say you gotta, if you're going to college, take advantage of whatever abroad program they have. Go.
Yeah,
Just
nobody
go.
ever regrets going.
Just
but
go.
People will regret not going. It's the best. When else can you just go to a country like, it's just the best.
My answer to David's question is that it sounds kind of scary, leaving behind everything that's so friendly and familiar with you to go to a place where you don't know people. But with if you just change your perspective and think of it as, you have a loving community back home that you can return to. But you're going off on this grand adventure, and you're going to meet new people, and there's cool people out there, and there's new sights to see. It is exciting and it is fun, and so don't fear it. Embrace it, and you'll probably find you'll make new friends a lot faster that way. It's really not that bad. And then you come home on your break and you see your old friends, and it's great.
Yeah, I'll answer the second part of the question, which is that I was looking forward to break. I was holding out for break. All I wanted to do, wanted to come back and see my friends, and I came back and I kind of missed my friends at school. I had these new friends, and now I miss them. And seeing my mom was great, and being home was great. I had to empty the dishwasher and help unload groceries. Please, I was running my own life at school. I was staying up till 2 in the morning. If I stay up till 2 in the morning, my mom's like, "Why are you still awake? Go to bed." If I wanted to sleep till noon, "Why are you still asleep? It's the daytime." I'm going back to school as soon as I can. I still sleep till noon if she'll let me. But even so, there's the fear of leaving is strong, and you miss your friends, and you feel like you're about to drop off the face of the planet, and everyone's going to forget you. And then that winter break comes around really fast, and by that point you realize, life hasn't really changed. I've got new friends. I've got friends to see at home. I've got friends to see at school. It's really not such a big deal.
Spencer. Probably the scariest part of college as a high schooler, for me at least, is the application process and getting in and choosing a school and getting scholarships. So can you tell me a little bit about scholarships and how that worked out?
Okay, what did I just pinpoint that? Scholarships, should we go there first? There are 5 million in the world. And I mean that literally because you can get tons of them. It's hard, but you can. What I mean is that when I was at Moore Park, I took advantage that Moore Park, there are a lot of scholarships that are hidden somewhere that no one really knows about, and so I applied for a couple of them and got a couple of them when I transferred because people don't really know they exist in Moore Park. So I'm actually I just got an email yesterday about another scholarship newsletter from Moore Park. I probably should get off of it, but I still get it, and so they're great. I mean, those were really fabulous. Those helped me a lot when I transferred to Pepperdine, and those were anything from my GPA to my involvement in speech team. Was that all of them? Was it 2 from Moore Park? Might have been 3. I don't remember. But they were small. They were like $500, $250, but they help. The $500, $250, and if you've got $500 ones, that's a lot of money. That really helps. And then I also was lucky that my friend found out about a transfer scholarship to Pepperdine, which ended up paying for half my tuition. That's the only reason really why I was there. Because of that scholarship. I also have to say I was lucky. I had a really nice GPA transferring, and that very much so helped my scholarship journey because I had that scholarship journey, and also when I was at Pepperdine I was able to get a couple other scholarships because of my continued nice GPA. So it helps. And what was the other part of your question, Spencer? Applications. I was the rarity, I think, and I applied to Pepperdine because my friends on speech team said, "Annie, we're all applying to Pepperdine, you should apply." And I was like, no, I'm not going to college. I'm going to go travel the world for a year. I'm going to go do this for a year. And they're like, come on, we're all applying. Apply to Pepperdine. So I applied to Pepperdine with my mom and my cousin. And then my mom said, you know, Annie, if you're applying to one school, you probably should apply to like other ones. And so all the UC applications were over. And so I only applied to USC and Chapman. And then when I got into all of them, that was weird because I wasn't going to college yet. And then all of a sudden I was going. So I know a lot of people apply to a million colleges, but I lucked out and I only applied to 3 and ended up going to my pick of the 3. So I'm sure that some of you applied to a ton, but I personally did not and didn't feel the need to, also because they're really expensive. Applications are expensive. But I do have to say, with applications, Spencer, awesome thing to do is save everything you're doing right now. Know everything extracurricular you're doing right now and make a list of it and keep updating it until you apply, and then it's super easy because they're going to ask you, what did you do in high school? And you'll be like, copy paste. And they're going to want to know like all the fun things that you like to do, and you copy paste. And there was a lot of essays, and I took
Reuse your essays.
Reuse your essays. And I reused, there was a couple essays that I wrote during my high school years, high school years, that I revamped a little bit and used them for my college essays, and then I just saved them, and then I changed them a little bit for USC, and then changed them a little bit more for Chapman, and a little bit more for Pepperdine. So you can just keep doing that. You don't have to write a new application essay for every single college. Obviously some colleges are going to be way more specific with their essays, and you may have to write a new one, but I ended up being able to very much reuse a lot of essays I'd already written.
Ben, not Benjamin.
Yeah.
Did I hear that you applied to 6?
I applied to most of the UCs, yes.
Very good.
Yes.
And did I hear a rumor that they all came back and said yes?
Almost, except for UCLA.
What? and how did you go about that?
Well, I decided to apply to all of them because I wasn't sure if I was going to get into my top picks, and I wanted to make sure that even if I did not, I would still be able to go to a college that was good for my major. My top picks were Berkeley and Santa Barbara because they had the program in chemical engineering, and basically that's why I applied to all of them. I know a lot of people don't apply to all the colleges, but for me I thought it was important because if I didn't get into those colleges, I wanted to make sure I could research the other ones and make sure I was getting into a good one in the end.
I want to say something very briefly about the UCs. The application is just one application, and then there's like, you just check which UCs you want to apply to. So if you're going to apply to one, you might as well apply to all 9.
So each one costs.
Yeah, I was gonna say each check is another $50.
So it's that charge.
Whatever.
You're going to go bankrupt anyway from these systems.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I'm going to UCs, I mean, it's already expensive. It's a drop in the bucket for the extra safety. That's how I felt.
Yep.
You're already doing the work.
I just have one side note. I applied to, I think, 12 schools, maybe more, and that is not necessary. Don't do that, because I was really stressed and really, it wasn't necessary, basically, especially since, like, deep down, I think I always knew Chapman was the right pick for me, so just don't do that.
Unless you have 12 schools you potentially want to go to.
Oh yeah, I mean you can. I'm just saying it was unnecessary. I felt this pressure, like, oh, I don't know. It was a little much.
One thing on writing your college applications, I remember when I was writing mine, originally I was like, I have to write the answer they want to hear. That was what I kept thinking, that this essay question is asking for a certain answer that they're going to want. And what I realized through the process with my mom is that it was so much better to just write honestly from me answering that question, because the way that I looked at it is that if they liked me for who I was, then I would want to be at that school. If they didn't like who I was in that essay, then I don't want to go to that school because it's not going to be a good fit for me. So I think that's important to know, is that don't try and write what you think they want to hear, because then you're going to set yourself up to probably be in a school or get accepted by a school that you're not going to want to be at anyway, because they're not wanting you for you, they're wanting you for what you think they want. Does that make sense? True. That makes sense in my head, but that makes sense out loud.
kind of side note off
Yeah,
that side
works
note
for us.
is I didn't do that great on like the SATs. Like I wasn't like very academically minded, and I really wanted to go to Chapman Film School or USC. And so like I applied to those two places, and then a bunch of CSUs because they had really good film production programs. And one of my best friends at the time, we were both applying to transfer out of Moore Park. He got into Chapman for film, and I didn't. And like I was pretty devastated at the time. It was a very competitive program, and I like looked at the schools, and it was between like Cal State Northridge, Cal State Long Beach, or like San Francisco, and I was like, and I like honestly just kind of chose Northridge because it was the most economical. Like I could still live at home and go to school. And then what I didn't realize after going there is that it's the film school that's closest to all the studios, all the rental houses. They get money from the Hollywood Foreign Press Association to fund their program. The vice president of the largest motion picture camera manufacturing company in the world, ARRI, he donates a camera package every semester to one of the senior thesis films. It just like was like this kind of gold mine of like really nice benefits, and I met all these great people, 3 of which are my business partners. And so I think it's like, you know, even if you obviously like go for it all, like, you know, apply to everywhere you want to apply to, but like if you don't get your dream school, like, you know, it can still work out. I think it's like it's not so much the path that, you know, it's not so much like the road, but like the direction you're headed. You know, it's like it's the end goal. You know, again, going back to your passion and everything.
I'd like to ask a question off of our email list. Knowing what you know now, what, if anything, would you do differently?
Take more risks, I think. I would do. That applies strictly to college. I think beforehand, high school, homeschool, we did so much. I wouldn't really change anything there. But in college, for me personally, sometimes the number of opportunities and the number of options were overwhelming, and that is a personal thing. That's not necessarily from homeschooling. I think personally, because I had so many options with homeschooling that were just given to me. I mean, it was the complaint was we don't have enough time to do school because of how many events we're doing. I don't know if that's still the case. That's still the case. Monday night was the teen group, and Tuesday was park day, Wednesday morning is classes, and Thursday is field trips, and Friday it's the weekend almost. So Mom always made us do school on Sunday, which I thought was grossly unfair. It was the weekend. But because there were so many opportunities that were given to me, the one thing I didn't learn in homeschooling was necessarily how to seek them out myself, because they were provided. And I know it's not the case for everyone. I mean, Mr. Brosco over here found his passion and went for it full-heartedly. So, but for me, I had a lot going on. I was very pleased with it. I loved it. And I just didn't learn how to find it myself. So when I got to college and I had all these options, there were too many options, first of all. And figuring out how to go out and find them and how to go out and choose them was something that it took me a bit to get the hang of. I don't know if I ever fully got the hang of it. And if I could go back and tell myself differently, say just choose something. What I've learned now, what I learned after college, when it finally came time to get a job, and I told myself, you know what, just choose something and get started. And I'm very happy with that path now. Is I would say, choose 1 or 2 things each. Well, I was on a quarter system, not semester, but choose 1 or 2 things each quarter to try that's new. Something you're not sure about, just do it anyway. Just take some risks. Don't be afraid. The worst case scenario is you're not thrilled with it, but you're still gonna have some great memories. You're gonna learn something from it. So I don't know if that's a lesson that necessarily can be learned before it's learned for yourself. But I would definitely push the young people to not be held back by uncertainty or by fear or by nervousness or worry that you might make the wrong decision. That was my thing, is what if I make the wrong decision? What I've come to find out is there are no wrong decisions, with some exceptions. There are no wrong decisions. If you'd be afraid to tell your mother about it, it's probably the wrong decision. It also depends on how cool your mom is. But if there's an option, if there's something you think you might want to try, you're not sure, I don't know if I want to be this when I grow up, just do it. That's what college is for. It's for trying things.
On a similar note to that, the reason when you're at college, you're paying to be there. Your central goal is to study and to get out of there. And so don't get me wrong, you're there to learn. That being said, if it's a Friday night and you're thinking you should go to the library because you're a little bit behind, but your friends are going off on some adventure, go with them.
Yes.
Honestly, don't turn down those adventures because it'll probably be awesome, and you might even have a life-changing experience, and B, you'll be able to study Saturday morning.
If you wake up.
Saturday evening. Okay, Sunday night, but you understand my point though. Don't pass up those opportunities.
Because you're not going to study anyway. You're going to sit on Facebook all Friday night and then you'll see the pictures from your friends who went out and you'll feel really bad about yourself. So it's just
well, there goes the romance.
Anyone else? Anything you'd change if you had
Just if there's some way that one thing I missed out on, I feel, by being homeschooled was time management. Just because we didn't have periods to deal with in high school. So it's something new to see, I have a class that starts at a specific time. Weird. If you can find a way to teach that to yourself, because it's kind of important, do that.
Any questions? In the back.
I don't know if you may have covered this before, but did any of you go not straight to college, but took time off? And if you could talk about that, what that was like, or and what did you do?
Sure. Well, I mean, I only took a 6-month program and then I took time off afterwards. Don't know if that really counts. But I went to school, and it's not like I stopped writing music. It's just that I wasn't doing it professionally. I was just doing it on a personal level because that's what I knew how to do, and I didn't really know how to turn it into a business. Even though I had gone to school for it, it's like, well, the school was more directed towards how to be a successful band, and I wasn't a band. I was a producer. So it's just a different place in the music industry. But that's splitting hairs. I took a break and I don't know, I came back here and really it was, for me, kind of interesting because it was the first time that I got to carve out my own path. I was just Natalie was talking about this, just the opportunities that you miss because you don't know how to find them. That's kind of the same thing in public school as in homeschooling. It's just school. You go to classes. Here's the classes that you're going to take. Okay, I take these classes and then I graduate. Now what? And it was weird to hear people say, well, what are you up to in life? Because I was able to answer that question with a number before. What grade are you in? That's what I was up to in life, right? And that's what people would ask. But now it's like, oh, now I can do anything, and it's this big long answer. That was the biggest adjustment for me. But I did take a break, and I think it was well worth it. I learned a lot of social skills. I worked for Apple at one of their retail stores for 3 years after school, and just learned how to get along with people and talk to people and talk about computers and I feel like I grew up at that job, really. So I think that break was well worth it.
I personally believe that there is everything okay to take a break before you go to college. I guess I didn't technically. I spent 3.5 years at Moore Park, when 2.5 years of it while I was still high school age. But I still went into Pepperdine a much older student, and then I stayed there for 4 full years. And I personally know that if I had gone to Pepperdine as the freshman age, as so many of my friends did at Pepperdine, it would have been so hard for me. I think everyone is different, but I think that no matter where you come from or who you are, that first year being that young as a freshman is hard. You're still figuring out who you are. We all still are figuring out who we are, but very much so at that freshman age, you're super influenced by everyone around you. You're still figuring out who you are. You're still figuring out what you want to do. You're still figuring out what your major should be. You've never been away from home. You have no very solid footing. So I personally was very grateful that I took extra time before I ever went to Pepperdine, because I felt like I had such a better foundation when I then was put living at college and with my peers and on my own. I felt much more able to handle it. I know that if I had gone straight from homeschool to Pepperdine, I would have probably floundered and drowned for a while. I was in a sorority at Pepperdine, and some of my little sisters were freshmen in my sorority, and I was their big sis, and it took a lot to help them through their freshman year. They had a really, really hard time coming straight out of high school into school, and I think that across the board, your freshman year is your hardest. I mean, I had a hard first year, but not as hard as their first year because you're just younger and it's harder. Not to scare anyone away from going into a 4-year, but I think if you want to take that extra time, take a break or go travel or hang out at Moore Park for a little bit, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I didn't feel weird graduating as a 23-year-old. That didn't bother me. It bothers some people, but it didn't bother me. So that helps with your question a little bit.
So what I will say is I didn't take a break. Sometimes I wish I had, but if you do take a break, you have to do something with that time.
Yeah.
You cannot sit at home. You have to take classes, go to Moore Park, get a job. Job experience is absolutely crucial. Travel, get an internship if there's something you've always wanted to try. Go knock on someone's door and say, I love what you do. Can I sweep your floors? Can I sweep your floors and can I learn about what you do and can I help you? You don't have to pay me, I'll help you. And most people are going to say yes to something like that. So really use that time well to discover something that you like and discover more about yourself and to become more motivated so that when you then do go to school, you have that direction, you have that motivation, and you know a little bit more about yourself, you're a little more solid. So while maybe other people are still they're transitioning from high school to college and they're trying to find themselves and find their major, which goodness knows is hard enough, you have a step up on that. Not everyone needs it, you can be just fine without it, but if you do decide to take that time off, I would definitely say you have to use that time well.
Any questions? Off the list, we also had.
They're all so cute. I want to take them all to my house.
As long as it's free, we'll eat it. All right, party.
Let me sweep your floors.
I love what you do.
I love what you do.
My neighbor ate Tom Robin.
Tom Robin was my long tater tots.
Oh, we have so many tater tots.
Tater tots. You eat a lot of tater tots.
Toaster ovens.
Or microfridges. Did you have microfridge?
Nope.
I had a microfridge.
Nice and crispy. Oh, I love it.
Keep snacks in your room.
Yeah, keep snacks.
Absolutely crucial.
Trader Joe's is great.
Go ahead.
So, what kind of students were you in high school? Like all straight A students, or what were your? Since you didn't get grades, what were your? Were you studious? Were you not studious? I'm not sure how to read into that.
Mine was a lie. I was the first to launch, if you will, of the teen group, and I think of all the kids who had grown up at that point and who were still in CVH, who hadn't gone to public school for high school and were graduating at the same time. I was the first to graduate from CVH. And my last year or two, my friends were saying to me, God, you work too much. You're always studying. You're always at home. And I definitely, my mom and I both worked really hard to build a curriculum. I wanted structure. I wanted to know that I was going to get this done for English and this done for history. And I wanted that structure. And I wanted those lists and those rules, and I wanted to get it done. I don't really know how much I actually got done because I'm an excellent procrastinator. So it appeared on the outside like I was extremely studious, and when we made our transcript, we asked the schools, well, we're homeschooled, what do you want us to put in for GPA? And they said, you decide. So put in 4.0. I mean, sure, I got
very good SAT scores. I also, to be fair, spent the 3 months before the SAT doing nothing but SATs. Which if you're in public school is not possible, you're taking other classes. And as a homeschooler, I had the freedom to say, I'm gonna sit down and do SATs 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day. So how much of that is because I knew what I was doing and how much of that was because I got to put in the time to learn it. And I will say this about SATs, it's a very certain system, it's a very certain type of test. If you're good at it, you're going to be good at it. If you're not good at it, it's going to be harder for you. There's a very I'll tutor you if you want, I'll put that out there right now. I take great joy in helping people break that system because those questions are not there to see how much you know, they're there to see how well you test on the SAT. There's a very specific kind of way of asking the questions. So,
yeah, Natalie, how'd you do on that SAT?
I don't remember. It was fine.
She got a perfect score.
No, I didn't. I was 50 points off.
Loser!
My essay was terrible. My essay was awful. I hated the essay. Yeah, okay, we have some empirical evidence, but I will say again, I had 3 months where I did nothing but SAT study before I took that test. So I don't feel like I could. Kids who are in public school who are taking 6 hours of courses a day and doing college applications and being the president of whatever club they're the president of, and they get scores on the SAT like I did, I look up to them because I don't know if I would have been the same way. So, yes, ma'am.
Fair enough.
Did you take some courses at Harvard?
I did. I took just 3, I believe. The first semester I just took 1 just to ease my way back into school, and I got an A, but it was a fairly easy class, I think. The next semester I took a government class and a math class. I did very well in the government class. I was on the honors track. It was the first time I had taken a math class since 2nd grade. I did math at home with my mom. My mom's a math tutor. I learned the math, but I had never done homework and tests. You know, test for me was I sat down, if I didn't get it, Mom, I don't get this. And she'd sit down and she'd help me, we'd figure it out. And ultimately I get the right answer and I understood what I was doing, but I did not know how to study and test and do homework. And I think I got a B in that class and it was like, you know, the world was ending because a B? Are you kidding me? I know I could have done that. So, yeah, I did the Moore Park thing and again.
And that was for high school?
That was my senior year of high school. Yeah. I did it mostly because I wanted to get comfortable with the classroom setting again after having not been in one. I honestly would have been, it was fine. It was fun to do. I think it was a useful experience, but.
And did those credits transfer to your university?
Mom?
Yeah, they did?
Yeah, they did. I went to one of the UCs, so most stuff transfers pretty well. There's a great website called, was it Access? Access.org? What?
Assist.
Assist.org, not Access. Oh, wrong one. Assist.org, which will actually tell you which classes transfer. But,
And were you 5A Kappa when you graduated college, young lady?
Yes, mother.
So your high school wasn't a complete failure.
It was a complete failure.
Any other questions in the back?
And as you made that transition from homeschool, either to Moore Park if it happened there, or to a school away from home if it happened there, how did you deal with the shift in freedom? I mean, you've all talked a little bit about the independence and being able to be self-driven and reliant, that you had that from homeschool in a way that perhaps some public school students might not have. But how did you deal with that much more open and much more complete freedom? Do you have any advice for helping ease that transition?
Time management, like in homeschooling, I think you do learn a lot of that. Your parents, again, do most of it. But when you're up in your room and your mom says, do this, this, and this, or something, you still have to manage your time. You have books you could read, or you have other things you can do. The front door's right there as well, so I mean, but you do have to manage your time and things in high school, homeschooling. But when you go out to college, it's even more freedom of not just managing your time when you're doing schoolwork, but everything else as well. What time do you need to get up to fit everything in your day? What healthy choices of food do you need to make? How do you get the food? I mean, just everything. I think at first it's hard and you're confused, and but then you get used to it, and it's just learning. I mean, you're constantly learning up until the day you die. So you just kind of grab what you have and go for it.
I started at Chapman with no car, and then I think a month in I brought my car, and I used my freedom very wisely, and I promptly went to the store and bought fruit gushers, and Kool-Aid in the beer-shaped bottles. They're never allowed to have that. And fruit by the foot, got it all, and Easy Mac. And I got a cavity. But golly, I was allowed to buy it, and I did. So, I mean, you learn from your freedom.
Is that the worst thing you did, Sammy?
We're good.
Fruit gushers.
Apparently they do give you cavities.
She went hardcore.
I am hardcore, okay?
Kudos. Kudo bars.
Your mom gave me kudos. I was allowed to
But the M&M ones, those were the good.
Oh no.
I feel like the freedom's just, it's fun. I mean, I wouldn't say that to be scared of it, or that you need to be like helped into it, because I don't know, it just kind of felt natural because that you're around other peers. And I mean, I have to say the first semester when I went out and I didn't have to tell mom or text mom, and then I came home whenever I wanted, that was weird for me. My mom was my best friend. But I've always been like, hi mom, it's 8:30, I'll be home at 10, love you, bye. And then when I get home, hi mom. But at school, it was like this whole new, oh my gosh, I don't have to text mom. This is weird. I think we had this conversation over the phone. I was like, I didn't have to text you last night when I went out, and I got back at like 11:30. That was crazy. But it's just fun. I mean, obviously there's responsible freedom and there's not responsible freedom. I have to say I was a very responsible freedom child. I don't think I could be a little responsible if I tried. I just don't know how. That's just me.
Show you the fruit gushers.
Yeah, I think really with the freedom, I think instead of thinking of it as like the scary thing of so many new things, you more should look at it as just it's fun. It's a fun new idea that you get to control your life in that sense. I think naturally we take things that our parents have done over the years, and naturally we live by that, unless of course you don't. But I feel like naturally you are influenced so much by your parents, especially as being homeschoolers. You're gonna naturally end up emulating your parents. I know, scary right now, but it's great, don't worry. But yeah, I think freedom, just think of it as something fun.
I would actually be less concerned about the kid adjusting to freedom because that's fairly natural.
Yeah.
The hard adjustment is when you come back on those breaks and all of a sudden that freedom's gone and mom's going, well, where are you going? Well, call me when you get there. Well, when are you going to be home? No, that's too late. Mom, you didn't know where I was for the past 3 months. Why do you need to know now? You're living under my roof? I need to know where you are. That's even now, that's kind of a struggle. So, it's the age, it's appropriate. The kids know what they want, they're starting to learn, they're going to taste that freedom, they're going to do what they do with it. And most kids are, if you raised them right, and even if you didn't, they're probably going to make mostly the right choices. And they'll screw up, and you did too, so. When they call you that first time crying, Mom, I really screwed up, don't yell at them. Go, honey, I know, let me tell you about my first time screwing up, and then tell them, okay, but don't do it again.
When you guys think back to the very first time you stepped on the Moore Park College and took your first class there, was it scary? Was it exciting? Was the class very difficult? What was that experience like? Because I think a lot of these kids have not yet had their first Moore Park class, and they're looking at it and it's daunting. So what was that like for you guys?
Well, you were there.
Leading questions, Abby.
I was 14 when I took my first Moore Park College class. So just walking into the classroom, the cat was kind of already out of the bag. Everyone's 18, 19, 20, 21, sometimes even older, late 20s, early 30s, and you just walk in, you're not hi. But I think it was easy for me because what I did was I took just a fun subject, it was also 3D modeling. So it was like something I had an interest in. It wasn't like I wasn't there for like hard academia or anything. You know, it was just, and so I just followed. I had done a lot of like YouTube tutorials of this type of thing, teaching myself software before. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna, you know, sit in a chair and like follow along on a computer program to a guy talking. Like that's what I do at home. So like it was kind of easy, and I like actually started to like make friends because like everyone was kind of like just like kids in this class. It was cool. Like that helped ease me in, and then like a little bit after that is when I started taking the. I started with like chemistry, I think. And that was like a little scary. But the secret with that is when you do the academic classes, you take it with a friend, and it's not scary.
Yeah. I'll kind of second that and say that those first few minutes at Moorpark were terrifying. I was shaking like a leaf. I had to walk into this classroom by myself. I was the youngest. And what I quickly found out was that they were more impressed with the fact that someone in there was this younger kid. I got some people who gave me this look, like it really put them out that, you know, you're younger, and made them feel bad about themselves. But I also made friends. People wanted to like adopt the pet kid. She's top in the class. She's ours. She's like our little pet straight A student. So that was the one easy class. But it's scary walking through that door, and you think everyone's looking at you until you realize half those people are asleep because they don't want to be there. The other half are young, you know, they're a little bit older, they're in their 30s, they're coming back, and they're really passionate. They're going to be the people you make friends with, or the young 30-year-olds who are married with a kid, and they've got the same level of drive that you do. People are going to give you kind of weird looks because you look a little bit younger. Then they're going to be really impressed with you. I actually turned 18 in this calculus class that I took, and no one really knew how old I was, which actually surprised me. I realized I shouldn't have felt self-conscious because they didn't know how old I was in the beginning, but I had a friend in the class, I told him, he told the teacher, and the teacher goes, "Oh, it's your birthday? How old are you turning?" And I go, 18. And this one troublemaker kid in the front turns around and goes, "What?" Then kind of gets this grin on his face, and the teacher smacked him. But it was. It really didn't end up being, at that point, it became a big deal. But we were almost done with the semester, and I had friends anyway, so you know, it didn't really matter.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, one thing that's nice for you guys is that homeschoolers have been at Moorpark for a long time now, because we were like the first kind of homeschoolers for a while that really inundated Moorpark. And so it's true though that we had a whole group of people that went to Moorpark. And so there's a lot of Moorpark professors that are already familiar with homeschoolers. There's one professor, Julie Campbell, who teaches psychology, and I would recommend a friend to take her class, and then he would recommend another homeschooler to take the class, and then she'd like email me and be like, "I have blah 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 in my class today. He's from your homeschool group. He's great." And so that's kind of nice for you guys, is some of these teachers are already familiar with homeschoolers, and they already have homeschoolers have a good rep, in my opinion, at Moorpark, because a lot of the homeschoolers have been CVH students, and we've impressed them. So you guys have a really you should look at it as a positive thing, is that you're going to be looked on in a positive light, and not as, "You're a homeschooler? What's that?" Because they know what homeschoolers are now. When Natalie first went to Moorpark, like, no one really knew what homeschoolers were. No one knew it. So you guys are kind of lucky in that sense. So I would say don't be scared of that.
So in the classes that you took at Moorpark, were there ever situations where there were things, obviously because the kids are older, topics and discussions, or especially maybe the artsier classes, things that came out that were not quite age appropriate, that made you uncomfortable, or was everything?
Yeah, I remember one time I like went out with a classmate on a break, and like he offered me a cigarette, and I told him no, and I told him I was 15. He like flipped out. I would always I got like facial hair like really early on and stuff. He was like, at least 20, like at least 20. I'm so sorry.
I remember, just so you know, I actually had teachers that came in the class, we're all just sitting down, and they started talking about last night, how they got so drunk and all this stuff, and I was like, really, teachers? So you'll see that kind of stuff everywhere, like, not just your peers at college.
Can I ask?
I must have gone over my head.
Can you guys comment on, and I know what some of your answers are, I know some of it, the quality of education you got at Moorpark compared
compared to
Amazing.
university?
Oh, good question.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
I think my mom's targeting me.
Probably.
Anyway, from my personal experience, when I was at Moore Park, all I wanted to do was get out of there. I just wanted to go to university. I wanted to be in a dorm and and be super independent and be able to walk to class instead of driving. I had all these ideas about it. But I was at Moore Park for a total of 5 years, 3 years in high school, 2 as a lower division. And as time went on, with every passing year, I liked it more and more. Although I wouldn't admit it to myself, I still knew I wanted to get out of there ASAP, but really I was really having a good time. And in my last year, I just had the best time. I was working as a math tutor, and I had that community to be a part of. And in my classes, they were all kind of cumulative. So these were the people in my classes in my last semester were people who I had been with in previous classes leading up to then. So I just had a bunch of communities and a bunch of people who I liked, and it was really fantastic. And by the time when I went off to Berkeley, it wasn't quite the same. I made friends, but the sense of community was a lot smaller. It's a lot tougher. There's so many more people there. Also, I felt more like a statistic rather than a person. No one was really watching out for me. You have to watch out for yourself a lot more. And I really found myself missing Moore Park a lot. And my final conclusion is that Moore Park is probably better education. No, Moore Park is definitely the better education.
Teachers at Moore Park care more.
Yeah, and half of them are teaching at like UCLA and other great schools. I mean, they're great professors there.
Yeah, no, I definitely like to say that, depending on the class that you take, you can really find students who are, dedicated and you want to be involved and you want to hang out with as well. Especially, I've mainly taken the science classes there at Moore Park. But those are especially good. There's places like the physics lounge where people gather and it's a hangout and, really find people that are dedicated in your subject. And, really great communities. They're small at Moore Park, but they are, very good for what they are.
Great.
And it's a very good education there. I know Moore Park usually ranks like first or second for community colleges for a number of transfers, like in California. So it's an exceptional college.
I had to do some general education at Northridge, and it was awful. The classes at Moore Park were awesome. The teachers were great. It was run like military barracks. It would start the classes would start exactly on time and let out exactly at the times that they say that they were going to get let out. And I remember at CSUN, my first general ed class, I was the clock was 20 past, and we were still waiting on the teacher. She comes flying in. It's a classroom of 150 kids or something, and I was just like, oh, I miss Moore Park.
I agree with it. At Musicians Institute, it's a tongue twister. Musicians Institute, just because it's right off of Sunset, it's right in the heart of Hollywood, and you run into a lot of strange people there. And the teachers are part of those strange people. So it was definitely an experience at MI, but the quality of classes and education that I got at Moore Park was much more of a college experience than what happened at MI.
I think the thing about Moore Park, everyone said it's amazing, the teachers are incredible, but really you have to take advantage of that. I think that something that's key is, talk to people who have gone to Moore Park and talk to them what professors to take, and look on ratemyprofessor.com and see what they say about professors, because every school is going to have many professors, but Moore Park is lucky that it has a lot of incredible professors, and if you can luck out and have all your classes be with the incredible professors, then that's amazing. Also, I'm going to say, was it Access, Mom? Is that, yeah. They have a program called Access, which is for students with any type of, any disability or any learning disability. And I knew from a young age I had a hard time with math, and I didn't know why. And so my mom took me in one summer, and I got tested through Access, and it was two days of 6-hour testing. They test you for everything, and it was great because I came out and they're like, you're great at this, but math, not so much. And I was like, yep. And I found out I had a learning disability in math. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because they were able to then accommodate my needs, and all I needed was double test time and a calculator. And if I had never taken advantage of that at Moore Park, I would have suffered greatly in my math, and then it transferred over to Pepperdine, and I was able to have the same accommodations at Pepperdine for when I had to take my upper division math class at Pepperdine. And also just the professors at Moore Park are, I had 4 or 5 teachers writing recommendation letters from Moore Park to Pepperdine. Julie Campbell, psychologist, she's amazing. Saber Rawls will forever be my mentor. She's a dance teacher there. And I was on the speech and debate team, which became my life while I was there because it's its own community. So as Ben said and everyone said, you find your niche at Moore Park and really don't take advantage of it because you're not going to find many schools that are like that. And the last thing is that, just so you guys know, a lot of professors at Moore Park come from four-year universities that decided to not work at four-year universities more because they wanted to have more one-on-one with their students. A lot of, one of the sign language professors came from Gallaudet, which is a deaf school. And Julie Campbell too, a lot of them come from high-end four-year universities, but they're like, you know what, I want one-on-one time with my students and I don't want them to be a number. And that's what's so brilliant about Moore Park is I don't think anybody felt like they were a number.
Benjamin and I had something nobody else had a math teacher who I highly recommend, Phil Abramoff.
What was the name?
Phil Abramoff, Mr. A. He is a phenomenal math teacher, can teach math to a monkey. But beyond that, his classes are a riot. They're tons of fun. And we're still in touch with him. We're Facebook friends with him, and he always harasses us to come visit whenever Benjamin's in town. We sit in his backyard and talk about pretty much everything. That's the kind of relationships you build with people at Moore Park. They really, really care, and they're really accessible. And I second, use ratemyprofessor.com. If this is the first time you're hearing about it, write it down. Use it no matter where you go to school.
Live by it.
Live by it. Look up all your professors. Trust the ratings. Yeah. Read the reviews.
Read the reviews.
Yeah, if the ratings are mixed and the reviews, half the students are saying, this teacher was really, really hard. Okay, but what was actually wrong with them?
Right.
A lot of people write very comprehensive reviews about how the teachers run their classes, what kind of homework they give, if they're fair, if they're clear in their explanations. Use the reviews, trust the reviews, and often you'll see that all the students who signed up before you definitely use Rate by Professor because the professors with the highest ratings, their classes are full with like 100 people on the wait list, and the people who got bad reviews on Rate by Professor, there's no one signed up for their class and it's the same class. Highly, highly recommend that. That will make the difference in your education, having a good teacher.
Sorry, could you say that website again slowly?
Rate My Professor.
Great.
Yeah, with a T.
.com. Thank you.
Right.
With a T.
Rake?
Can I ask you guys a question? And it's sort of hard because you've only done your own path, but if you've gone to a public university or a private university after Moore Park, do you regret that? Do you like that? Would you wish you'd gone to a different kind of school? Or does it not matter?
You make the best of whatever situation you're in.
Yeah.
I think.
I don't regret anything.
I regret nothing.
I go to a private four-year university and I love it. I think it's great because I definitely am not a number. My first semester I got really, really sick and actually had to come home for about 4 weeks. And not only did the president of my school send all my teachers letters, but one of my teachers was calling me every day, "Hi honey, how are you feeling?" It was really not an issue. I didn't fail that year because all my professors are like, "Oh, well, that student on my roster didn't come to class." They knew I was wrong and it all worked out. I just feel really supported at Chapman and it's just great going to such a small school as well. There's about 7,000 students, I think, and I really like that. It feels a lot more like a community at Chapman instead of just like this huge. I never feel lost. I always am like walking across campus, oh hey, because it's tiny. Anyway, I love it.
Did anybody go to Pierce? Or do any Pierce? Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I went and I'm going to Pierce College. It's wonderful. It's everything they say about Moore Park, just at Pierce. It's everything they say about Moore Park, just Pierce. Just Pierce.
Different locations.
Different locations.
Spencer?
Did you tour campuses, and did that play an important part in your decision-making process, or did you just look at the shiny brochures, or your parents went there, or?
Visiting campuses was definitely super helpful because you're going to read about all of these stats and about what the rankings of your schools and how they rank in academics and socials and party school and whatnot. So there's really the quality of the school, the experience of it, and you just have to go there and see do you vibe with it. And it sounds very wishy-washy and new age, but it's kind of true. Sometimes you just walk into a campus and on paper it sounds great and you just don't like it. It just doesn't fit you, and that's perfectly valid. Then you go somewhere else and you're just like, ooh, I just like it. I can see myself here. That's an extremely important aspect of choosing a college, which you don't hear too much about because you can't put a number on it.
True. I'm a huge advocate of visiting campuses. I worked as a campus tour guide for the last 2 years of college, so I gave the spiel and I walked backwards.
In flip-flops?
No, we weren't allowed to wear flip-flops. Like, that's a liability. You're gonna fall anyway, you won't fall in flip-flops. You have to visit the schools because, for instance, my parents went to Berkeley and I thought I'm going to Berkeley for sure. I'm going to Berkeley. I got into Berkeley. I love Berkeley. I visited Berkeley. Whenever we're in the Bay Area, we go visit Berkeley. When we went from my college tour, I walked around and I thought, I can't go to Berkeley. I don't fit in here. This isn't me. And when it did come time to pick which of the colleges I want to go to, it was because I had visited and I could. The question I always told the kids when I gave these tours is, in the end, it doesn't matter where you go because you can study anything anywhere. With some exceptions, if there's something very specific you want to study, you have to go to a specific school, but mostly you can study anything anywhere. Where do you want to wake up every morning for 4 years? Because you're going to live here. You have to like it. If you hate the desert, don't go to school in the desert. If you hate where it's cold, stay off the East Coast. I mean, it really comes down to, go somewhere where you'll get a good education and then go somewhere that you'll be happy. And I think visiting the campus and seeing what's there, going on the tour is great. Actually, sometimes going on the tour is not great. Going on the tour at one of the schools meant I didn't go there because the tour was so terrible. But mostly going on the tour is great. But even if you don't, walk around, check out where the housing is, check out where the main buildings are, think about, am I a walker? Do I like the long walk? Do I want to go somewhere where it's smaller? It's really, really important to actually see the layout and see if you like it. It's like you wouldn't buy a house sight unseen. You're going to live there. Why would you go to a school sight unseen?
And current students love talking to prospective students. So my mom works in the bookstore at Pepperdine, and constantly when I'd walk in, she'd be like, "Oh, Amy, these are 2 new prospective students." And the thing that was great about that is because, the tour is great, but they have to say a certain script and answer certain questions. And so by talking to a current student, they're going to tell you honestly what they think and how they feel. I personally was strange, and I didn't go to one campus tour, and then I accepted Pepperdine, and then I went and visited. I don't know if that's the best idea, but I'm just weird like that. But yeah, go talk. I know some schools do like I don't know if any of you did it, where you do an overnight.
If you want to do an overnight in Chapman, I just got a brand new house. We love it. And we'd love to have you over. We'll have a housewarming party. But not a party. Anyway.
We're going to have tea.
Fruit roll.
And I live 3-minute walk away from Chapman, so I'll show you everything. And you can sit down on class. Yeah.
I definitely agree. Overnights, you learn much more than you will during a campus tour because for a variety of reasons.
Be careful, you're saying.
David, tell how you changed your mind about where you're going.
Well, Berkeley specifically. Okay. So growing up, I visited Berkeley every once in a while because both my parents went. So just sometimes maybe go up to the Bay Area. We always just stop in Berkeley for them. And so as a kid, I saw it. And Berkeley's kind of a weird place. There's some weird people walking around, and it's got a certain smell to it. It's kind of dirty and grody. It's very grungy. That's my favorite word to describe it. And as a kid, I didn't want that. I grew up in Thousand Oaks. It's a nice area.
And you would walk around barefoot as a kid.
That too.
It's not grungy at all.
Anyway, so I was checking out some other schools, and the reason why I went back to Berkeley in my last year at Moore Park is because one of my friends was going to Berkeley, and so over spring break at Moore Park, I went to go visit him. And when it was my first time there in a few years, because I knew I wasn't going to go there, but I had applied anyway, just because I felt like I should. But when I was with him, that was essentially an overnight, and I stayed at his place, and I brought schoolwork of my own to study, and so we'd go off to the library together, and I essentially lived the life of a student over a week.
Of it, and it was, I felt that I was away at school, even though I was not far. you know, when you're in that college setting, you don't have to be across the country to feel away, because it's your first time living not by yourself, you're with it, you have a roommate or whatever. But I was in Malibu and I was in Santa Monica and I wasn't in Calabasas and Thousand Oaks where I'd grown up. But I have to say, going to live at school and also being close to home had many benefits. When you got sick, I went home. I still could come back and see some of my friends. I didn't feel that it was like a crutch or anything. I think it was great because I had the best of both worlds. But that's me. I mean, my twin sister went to New York City and is still there. So it's very dependent on who you are. But for me, I feel that as a homeschooler, we are home all the time and we're with our parents all the time. And I think that's brilliant because we get these amazing relationships, which Joey talked about earlier, about how we're so close with our families. And to get that opportunity to kind of fly and have the freedom, as that question was before, and to learn from that is a really important life skill. But that was for me. And I know some people didn't live on campus. So I think it depends on who you are. But yeah, that's for me. I know you guys did.
I wasn't on campus. I commuted. I was 17 when I went to MI though. So. For me, that was all entirely part of the plan. You know, it wasn't really my decision to still be living at home. If it were up to me, I would have gotten, you know, housing, probably not in Los Angeles, but someplace probably closer to Thousand Oaks, I guess. I don't know. If I had gotten some kind of an apartment right in the heart of LA at 17, I don't think it would have.
Wouldn't have gone well.
So yeah, in hindsight, I guess dorm or some living quarters nearby Musicians Institute was never really an option for me at that age. If I were to go back now, yeah, I'd want to do that. But yeah, that was just the setup that I had. And I think we're all happy that I was not doing another, living in Los Angeles at 17.
Good life choice.
Orange is just far enough that you can drive home, but also far enough that you don't want to. I have to drive straight through LA, and there's like tons of traffic, and it's really gross. So it's nice because I don't drive home every weekend. Well, actually, I did for an internship. But anyway, so you can choose a school that's like fairly close and still far enough that you feel like you got like quite a, you got some distance. Or even San Francisco, I think, is really doable. Wouldn't you say that, Joe?
Yeah, I was actually going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's far enough that mom can just come visit you on a whim, and also it forces you to handle certain problems on your own. You can't just panic and run home. You have to sit there and face it and figure it out on your own. But for emergencies and such, you can be home within 24 hours.
24? You can be home in 2 hours.
Is it
2?
That's a fast car ride.
It's about a 7-hour car ride.
Buy the ticket, get to SFO.
7-hour car ride, and then if you buy a plane ticket, it's going to be pricey, but you can be home in 2 or 3 hours.
What about, just tell me real quickly about the transfer housing, because I think that's really important for kids who transfer, the quality of transfer housing that you experience.
Yeah, when I went to Berkeley, I lived in upper division / transfer housing. Many of the kids were transfers, and many of them were upper division, meaning that they were juniors and seniors. I thought that was important just because the alternative would be living with freshmen, which you're just in a completely different place from freshmen to, you probably won't find many people who you can connect with, or you have to kind of live on your own with randomly assigned people who you find on Craigslist, or maybe find your own place. And that's really tough. Going far away from home where you don't know anyone, having to live by yourself, every night you have to go back home to this empty house or to a house where you don't know the people that well. Yeah, it's not very good. So I personally also transferred with about 10 of my friends from Moore Park, and that really helped. And my roommate in the transfer housing was one of my best friends from Moore Park. So that's really helpful. Take advantage of those opportunities because they're there to assist you and they are helpful.
And Asa, you went all the way across the country.
I went too far away. I went to Rhode Island, and I realized that I didn't want to be on the East Coast. I wanted to be closer to my family. It's too far away, so I ended up going to San Francisco. And and then ended up living with my brother. So the same school, with my identical twin brother in the same major in all the same classes. In the same so very close to my family, I guess.
A little too close.
Shared a bedroom for the longest time as well.
Should have signed up for just one applicant at the college.
Every other day?
So I kind of just showed up at CCA unannounced. I didn't apply to it after I just transferred right in. I called in. It's like, I want to go there. And they're like, okay, just show up.
Wow.
I didn't have to send an application.
Wow.
Nice.
You can do it that way.
Yeah, I did it that way.
Where's your brother?
Where is he?
Yeah.
He's at home.
Which room of the house?
Not specific enough.
Yeah.
The living room.
Still
on the right couch.
in San Francisco?
No, he's down in LA.
All right, well, we have a time limit on the Cameron Center, and are there any last minute burning questions that anyone has?
From anyone in the front row.
Yeah, this has been a very quiet front row.
You did ask a question.
There
we go.
Okay, so like when we move the door or whatever and you have a roommate, like how is that? Like a stranger that you've never met before and now you're living with them? A lot of schools have like a roommate matching program.
Like Match.com.
It is. Sometimes they're random, sometimes you can self-select. My school and a lot of schools, you know, you make like a Match.com profile and it shows you who 89, 79% you're compatible with and you like email them. It was really interesting. And yeah, your first year you'll get set up with someone in that sense. And then after that you can pick. I looked out and for the past 3 years I lived with the same 2 girls. And that was perfect. But my freshman year roommate, nope. She was nice, but we didn't mix and it didn't work. But some people mix really well with their first roommate. So in that sense, it's like Match.com.
Be really honest on that. Be honest with yourself. Because don't try to be like, oh, well, who do I want to live with? Because if you're saying on there, yeah, I stay up till 2, you're going to get someone who stays up till 5. And you're going to be like, I need to go to bed. Turn off the light, you know? Be like really honest with yourself because there's no going back. Like, and don't expect to be best friends with your roommate. Hope that they're like compatible living partners. And if you guys are friends, you're friends. And if you're not, hopefully she changes the toilet paper roll or whatever.
Roommates, my school has, you fill out a survey and it's very practical questions. Are you more neat? Are you more messy? Do you stay up late? Do you get up early? What kind of music? You know, what are your interests? And I was in a room about this big with 2 other girls, and those 2 girls are still some of my best friends. And of all the bedroom, I was talking about the suite setup that we had, there were like 5 or 6 bedrooms, suite setup. Our room had a lot of those rooms were only supposed to be doubles, but they ended up having 3 people in them because the college, they let in more people than they meant to, and it complicated too many people at the school. So most of these very small bedrooms had 3 people in them. You had bunk beds on one side and a loft bed on the other with the desks crammed in. There wasn't enough closet space, so they had an armoire. It was nuts. A lot of the other groups of 3, they were okay or they didn't get along. Our group probably had the most clothes collectively of the entire suite and the most shoes, and ours was the room to hang out in. People loved us, we loved each other, we sang Mulan at the tops of our lungs, we communicated really well, and I really just adore those girls. In the room directly next to us, we had 2 girls. Luckily they had just 2, and they, on their application, filled out all the same things. They both loved musicals, and they both loved animals, and those 2 girls could not have been more different than night and day. I thought they were going to kill each other. They just absolutely couldn't stand each other's guts. One was very innocent and very almost too wholesome and just like so super sweet, and you kind of just wanted to shake her, and the other one was out partying every single night, and it was kind of hilarious to watch. But you can fill out that application and that survey thing, you can still get matched up terribly. But generally the survey thing works. Also, I think my experience is very rare to be so close, especially when you put 3 females in a room that small. There's not enough chocolate in the world to make that an okay situation. But even though my situation was rare, you work with people, you might have someone you don't get along with, you might have terrible roommates, you might have great roommates, but you have to be honest
you filled that survey honestly. It's extremely good advice. And the good news is that, yeah, after the first year, you get to choose who you live with. Be careful who you choose. If you choose your best friends, you may not be best friends at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Definitely, you want to try to choose people who you think you get along with, who you don't necessarily share a social circle with or share every interest with. More about sort of living. Find out if someone's really high maintenance, if they just need to have it their way all the time. Like my third year, the girl I lived with had a germaphobe problem, and her bathroom in our little apartment was like the front bathroom what the guests would use, and as soon as a guest walked out of her bathroom, she'd be in there with Lysol wipes, wiping everything down. So like, you gotta know someone's more personal living habits before you decide to live with them.
And like, talk to them. Don't let stuff slide that you're like, oh well, I don't want to be like annoying or whatever, because I had a roommate who just didn't understand the concept of like of not sharing everything, and she literally would eat all my food, like all of it, until it was gone and I'd have no food. She'd like use all my shampoo and conditioner. It's not that I don't mind sharing, but like be aware and say like, hey, you know, I know we said we share condiments, but peanut butter is really not a condiment, you know, like talk to them.
Communication is key in a relationship.
Do the guys have any of these issues?
Sandwiches.
Yeah, boys, can you weigh in here?
What did you?
How much cooking do you do, Benjamin? What food do people take out of your side of the refrigerator?
Not much, although one of my randomly assigned housemates cooks a lot, which is really cool because he was a really good cook. I still live with him actually. We decided to keep rooming together for the next year. My actual roommate though, sorry, he was my housemate, but my roommate, as I said before, he was one of my good friends from Moore Park and we transferred together. And luckily, both of us are very easygoing guys, but if it wasn't for that, we might have not been friends by the end of the year. Because he was super messy and I'm very neat. And that was almost enough to have things be a problem. But the guy who I'm living with now, he's one of the randomly assigned guys. He was living in the other room in our apartment, so he was a housemate. And he and I are not as close friends, but we're more compatible housemates. So that's definitely a distinction worth making. Someone you want to be your friend, someone you want to live with.
Any last questions from the front row?
If you would like to come talk to us afterwards and ask one-on-one.
Or you can email me.
Be excited.
Or go visit her.
Be excited.
Yeah.
And college is fun. I know there's like a bazillion things to talk about, but college is fun. And each of you will have your own individual experience. So don't be scared of it. Not
Well, there's some lighter questions, so if you guys want